Pete Hegseth has unsurprisingly done it again because our unqualified and incompetent Secretary of Defense seems to be focused on everything but actually doing his job. And unsurprisingly, Pete Hegseth is making sure the agents who hold him accountable can't do theirs. And it is creating yet another scandal at the Pentagon that we are going to get into because it led to the firing of someone who outwardly professed themselves to be a Trump stooge. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this latest scandal from Hegseth, I want to start with a bit of context that surprisingly happened on Fox when the Fox host was responding to and being shut down by a CNN reporter detailing all that is happening at the Pentagon right now. It is a very important watch.
You posted this about Pete Hegseth on your Substack, saying you feel tremendous sadness at the changes he's made. Explain.
I do. It's completely unnecessary. Reporters for decades have operated inside the Pentagon, moving through the hallways, and of course they talk to sources. Hegseth is worried that it is unauthorized information. That's conversation. That's reporting.
But the suggestion here is that your reporters, of which you were one for decades, are looking to vacuum up secret or classified documents by walking in those halls.
Impossible to do. Reporters have no access to classified areas. Those are locked. I'm not aware of any instance in which a reporter has accessed classified information in the Pentagon by moving through the hallways and going into classified areas. Hegseth is embarrassed. He's embarrassed by certain events. He's embarrassed by there's so much exposure to the information classified by all accounts that he posted on Signalgate about that air attack in Yemen. He's embarrassed that information came out that he was going to meet with Elon Musk and brief him on China. You know, even today, as you and I sit here and talk, the Ukrainians are bombing Russian strategic bombers deep inside Russia. Could be a response by Putin. Maybe the defense secretary wants to think, it's up to him, about spending more time thinking about these national security matters than the PR structure, if you will, of his press operation.
Well, of course, Secretary Hegseth has dismissed as a distraction the whole business about Signalgate. And by the way, we asked for a response from the Pentagon, didn't get any response at all. He has also held the grand total of one news conference since taking over at DOD. Does that matter?
It matters. And let me, why, it's a great question. Why is this so important? Why is this?
The average person out there saying what?
A lot of people
don't
don't like the news media. Here's the bottom line. The U.S. military swears an oath to defend the Constitution, the First Amendment. That includes nothing to abridge freedom of the press. So this is a life and death issue for the U.S. forces, and that makes it a life and death issue for the media, which often accompanies them. This is about the constitutional requirement to maintain a free press in this country. That is what America's all about. So let me just offer this thought. The next time U.S. troops, all geared up for combat, board some transport plane in the middle of the night to go somewhere, the Pentagon Press Corps is going to do its job as it does every day. They will be there. They will cover it as the World Press Corps was. Nobody's going away.
So that was just some great reporting from Barbara Starr. She was the CNN host appearing on Fox and giving a very detailed report on what is just absolute chaos at the Pentagon. And of course, Pete Hegseth isn't framing it that way. He's doing everything he can to twist the narrative, but it's just not working out too well. Just take a listen to him in his latest Fox interview. This was just nonsense.
Orders we give, to the plans we discuss, there's a reason why our nation's most closely held secrets are contained in certain places with only access from certain people. Nobody takes that more seriously than me. If there's one thing I've sort of been offended by, I don't get offended by much. I'm here to do my job for the president, for the country, is this idea that I don't take classification or I don't take clearances seriously. Nobody takes it more seriously than me. And we make sure that's infused through how we operate. And we do everything we can to deliver on behalf of the American people that way. All right, Secretary.
Really, Pete? The guy responsible for not one, but two Signalgate scandals, he's the one who cares so deeply about security. Yeah, I don't buy it. And neither does anyone in the press, which is exactly why Pete Hegseth is going after them. And it's not just the leftist, liberal, mainstream media press. No, Donald Trump's own stooges in right-wing media are losing their jobs because of Hegseth, because of his meltdown. And we're going to get into that in this article right here. MAGA outlet's Pentagon correspondent criticized Hegseth, and then she was fired, she says. A MAGA reporter criticized Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's crackdown on press access across the Pentagon, and then she said she was fired. The reporter was briefly the chief Pentagon correspondent for the small and staunchy pro-Trump TV channel One American News, and was a self-proclaimed MAGA girl who positioned herself as a proudly conservative voice amongst the normally nonpartisan Pentagon press corps, but she grew perturbed by Hegseth's actions against the press. In a post on her personal Substack on Tuesday, she wrote that the Department of Defense's recent move to make vast parts of the Pentagon off-limits to journalists was a troubling shift. She heaps doubt on the Defense Department's rationale for the restrictions, and she questioned why Hegseth hasn't had any formal press briefings since he has been sworn in. This article isn't to serve as a hit tearing down Hegseth, she wrote. This is me wanting to keep MAGA alive. Evidently, though, someone disagreed. On Thursday, I was asked to turn in my Pentagon badge to my bureau chief, the reporter said in response to CNN's inquiry about her status there. On Friday, she said she was fired. So a MAGA reporter doesn't even necessarily criticize Pete Hegseth as much as she points out the fact that he isn't doing any media appearances in any formal way, although he's installing a makeup studio at the Pentagon. So it seems like you might want to do a little media, or maybe he just wants a nice little bit of foundation when he's walking around all the time. But this wasn't some slam from some liberal-leaning reporter. Like, this is the most hardcore MAGA person asking for more access so they can be even more hardcore MAGA. And then Pete Hegseth, some way or another, through the trickle down of his staff that knows how obsessed he is with loyalty, decides this person's got to get gone. Like, what is happening? This is just so embarrassing that this administration is so terrified of accountability, even from their biggest supporters, that people are getting fired. And that's always the word that I keep coming back to as of lately: embarrassment, especially on the world stage. And Lawrence O'Donnell broke that down as it relates to Donald Trump's tariffs in a clip I want to check out right here.
Presidents are empowered by law to make very minor, very specific, very temporary changes in tariffs for specific products for a very short period of time. But that's not what Donald Trump did. He put a 10% tariff on the entire planet. Congress could do that. They could pass an economically idiotic 10% tariff on the entire world. But even the Republican Congress isn't that stupid. The Republican Congress is not as stupid as Donald Trump about tariffs. And so Donald Trump has launched into his tariff madness alone, the only president in history to have done so. And with an exclamation point, the utterly lost occupant of the White House tells us that the presidency would never be the same if we actually restore, through sane court decisions, presidential power to what it has always been from the day George Washington took the oath of office. Donald Trump's permanently smiling and totally incompetent economic advisor, who never achieved tenure in his brief career as a low-level economics professor before becoming Donald Trump's economics professor in residence, took his frozen smile to friendly television interviewers today by saying that the ruling by the Court of International Trade will not have any impact at all on the Trump team's so-called trade negotiations around the world, in which they promised to deliver 90 trade deals in 90 days and have not yet delivered a single trade deal, not one. And while the childish, by standards of the economic profession, Kevin Hassett, was publicly spewing his nonsense about a court ruling against the Trump tariffs having no effect on the countries that the Trump team is trying to negotiate with, of course, the Trump team was in court putting in writing exactly the opposite. The other point that the Trump lawyers had to convince the appeals court of today in order to obtain a stay was that if they didn't obtain a stay, their side of the case would suffer what the law considers irreparable harm. while insisting that the plaintiffs would suffer no harm because the government will simply refund to them the Trump tariff money if they win. The Trump lawyers insisted that Donald Trump was already suffering harm to his so-called trade negotiations by the ruling of the Court of International Trade, because it takes away what the Trump lawyers called the credible threat, that was their phrase, credible threat of Donald Trump's tariffs, which means that, quote, foreign counterparts will have reduced incentives to reach meaningful agreements. The Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, and U.S. Trade Representatives similarly explained that the trade negotiations currently ongoing with dozens of countries are in a delicate state and could be shattered by an injunction against the tariffs. So there was the smiling clown of Trump economic policy on television, telling you the ruling by the court has no effect at all on their negotiations with other countries, while at exactly the same time, the Trump Justice Department lawyers are in court telling the appeals court that the negotiations with other countries have been shattered by the court ruling against the Trump tariffs. Quote, those negotiations are premised on the ability of the president to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Just another day in Trump land. The Trump clowns on TV saying one thing, the Trump lawyers functionally under oath in court saying exactly the opposite. And the goofy chaos agent at the center of it all, not having the slightest idea what he's doing or what the people on his team in court are saying. Donald Trump is lost in the White House tonight. He is lost in the madness of his trade war. He does not have and has never had the mental capacity to comprehend a single element of what it actually means to be president of the United States. Donald Trump makes every president who preceded him look better, including the criminal Richard Nixon, who was not half as criminal as Donald Trump, who, unlike Richard Nixon, has actually been convicted of crimes and Richard Nixon was supremely competent compared only to Donald Trump.
I cannot stand thinking about how the rest of the world views us all right now. And it just makes me want to fight back and be even louder so that there's a different voice that is not just Donald Trump's that the rest of the world can see as what America really represents. We're going to try to be that on the show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.